Howdy. So 2015 is a really exciting year because with the proliferation of mobile devices, the number of apps, the ways that people are connected, 2015 truly is the year of mobile. Now, that being said, I hear some of you laughing because there's an ongoing in-joke. Looking back over my notes and my decks that I presented to some of you, it's really more like the 8th or 9th annual year of mobile. So, I'm Jeremy Hull, Director of Bought Media, and I have the honor of having the last session of the day talking about mobile, and I find myself in a little bit of a quandary because over the years, I've seen a lot of folks present about mobile at conferences and at other events, and it's usually some young, hip, trendy guy wearing Vans like Jeremy Kornfeld, and they start off with some really shocking statistics about the adoption of mobile. So to prepare for this session today, I went and did some research and tried to find some statistics. The problem was I had a hard time finding something that really shocked or surprised me. So we're going to do a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to throw these out there, and I want you to raise your hand if you're actually surprised by these statistics. A recent study showed that over 80% of smartphone users between 18 and 44 had their phone with them 22 hours a day. Anyone surprised? No? All right. Another study showed that over 75% of smartphone users check their phone in the morning before even brushing their teeth. No? All right. Here's my last one. I saw another study that showed that 60% of married couples with smartphones actually slept closer to their phone than to their spouse. Anyone shocked? No? So, really, the reason that these statistics aren't as shocking as they used to be is because the mobile revolution isn't something that happened at some grand scale. It wasn't something that was engineered by an individual company. It is the ultimate example of personalization. Your smartphone is an extension of yourself. It's the internet in your pocket, and it is the most intensely personal connection that you have to the world around you. And it's also altering our behaviors in a lot of ways, some of which are obvious, but others of which you're not even noticing. So, another thought experiment. Think about the last time you called someone on the phone and said, "Hey, where are you?" Now think about the fact that not too long ago, you couldn't call someone on the phone unless you knew where they were. So, I'm left with a quandary. It's the last session of the day. I've got to wake everybody up. I can't shock you with statistics, so instead I have to do something else pretty extreme to shock you. Everybody awake? Full disclosure, this is just my empty case. I've got my phone with me. So, tomorrow, I'm going to get the chance to talk to you, along with my compatriot Jesse Derian, about mobile's influence on paid search and how we're harnessing that and driving success with our clients in our Insight Lab. And I'm really looking forward to that. But today, I'm actually going to step back and let two of our biggest partners take the stage. So I'd like to welcome Pablo, Slough, and Brian Utter from Google and Microsoft, respectively, to come up here and answer some of our questions about where they see mobile headed. Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us, guys, and providing the insight. Why don't we just start off by telling us a little bit about how you see the mobile space evolving in general, how you see mobile search evolving, and what your company is doing to address these challenges and these changing consumer behaviors.
Okay, John.
Sure, go ahead.
So at Google, the way we're looking at it is that what we've seen in the past is that we've now surpassed TV in terms of time spent by the consumer. And actually, when we really break down digital, total digital, most of that growth is coming from mobile. In fact, in the past 4 years, it's grown 7x. So what we're seeing there is that it's really a paradigm shift for how we are going to reach the consumers. And we're seeing that more and more people are doing small bursts. You mentioned a couple. 150 times a day, 160 minutes. These are small bursts. We have minute times. They're not watching their phone for an hour at a time, right? Like we would maybe watch TV. So what's really changing is it's become these kind of micro moments where you need to basically reach them at the time when they're on their phones, waiting for the kids at school or in Starbucks or just sitting on the toilet, as we say, right? What's interesting about
and hopefully washing their hands afterwards, right?
I hope so. Yeah. Before and after, right? We feel that the micro moments is where people are having these things. We're having to now advertise for those micro moments. We're having to respond to the needs in the time. So mobile has really just changed the whole paradigm. And what it really comes down to when we're working with clients and advertisers is we look at three important pillars we have to look at. It's basically, you've got to make the user experience incredible, right? Classic thing behind this is, when we were back in 2006, I'm sure we all remember, we're trying to convince everyone to go to digital, right? All our consumers were already on the internet, but we were still like, well, I don't know, this digital thing, right? So we did sites, and those sites were pretty crap, basically, right? And then we said, no, we got to improve the quality of the pages so that people are happy and whatnot. So now, come 2014, 2015, we're now reaching a point where all our consumers are on mobile, and we're still waiting to get over. It's like Groundhog Day, right? And what's happening? Everybody's creating mobile sites, and they're creating mobile sites that are bad. They're terrible, and it's true. So what's happening? We're looking to make sure that people are improving the quality, because what's happened now is that you have a consumer that lived through the internet when it started, and the consumer said, well, hey, we're all learning here, we're exploring the internet, I'll allow a bad site experience. Come today, if you don't get me what I want in a minute on my mobile, I'm off. Right? So it's changed. It's the same person, but they are more demanding. The second piece is really just being relevant marketing. It's really changed. Things like near me, people adding near me to their searches has doubled in the past year. I mean, it's doubled. That's crazy, right? And really the third piece is just making sure we can measure. In the earlier piece, we were talking about attribution and measurement and that last click kind of thing. Truth is, nowadays, the mobile is driving people in store. It's driving people to call. And all of these things, we need to measure them to make sure we're really seeing the full value. So that's where we're really putting our bets behind.
That's fantastic. Cool. So, Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. I would probably echo most of what my colleague Pablo would say. At Microsoft, kind of starting at a very macro level, we're a fairly diverse company. We're in a lot of business lines. I'll get to search in a moment, but we're seeing mobile penetrate our product lines kind of from left to right across all of our offerings. And one of the things that we've done in the last 12 to 16 months since Satya Nadella became our CEO is we've really reorganized kind of our strategic vision, which is now, not surprisingly, a mobile-first, cloud-first company. And that is simply acknowledging the realities of the industry around us and how thought workers as well as consumers want to and are demanding to consume our products and services. For Microsoft, mobile isn't necessarily a phone. It's not a device. When we talk about mobile, we talk about portability of the consumer experience. So for us, regardless of where you are, regardless of what type of device you're using, be it a Windows-based device, an Android device, an iPhone, a BlackBerry or other, we want to make sure that we can expose Microsoft's assets in a way that helps make you more productive. And so kind of at a top level, that's really been the focus of our company over, I'll call it the last 12 months. A little bit more provincially in search, the way that we're thinking about Bing, those of you, I know a lot of you in the audience, I've seen a couple of you, and you've heard me talk about Bing, the search engine. We don't talk about Bing as the SERP as much anymore. We think about Bing a lot more as an information fabric, as a fabric that sits underneath our assets. And certainly the intent understanding, the consumer understanding that we generate in this asset gets surfaced and can be surfaced in a variety of ways. Bing.com is certainly one of those. But we're beginning to more aggressively explore more kind of mobile modalities so that the power of Bing gets exposed to you on the go. A great example of that is Cortana, which is our digital personal assistant. For those of you who have not experienced Cortana, it is smart, it learns, it anticipates, and it helps you through the day. So you're going to continue to see a focus from Microsoft on exposing our assets across a wide range of devices and operating systems, and you'll see us embracing new modalities such as voice with Cortana, or touch, or gesture. In terms of very provincially, within advertising, the types of investments you've all seen Microsoft make through YBN and Bing Ads, the platform, include things like universal event tracking, our tracking software, our tracking tag, unified device targeting so you can reach consumers across multiple devices, as well as kind of more specific optimizations and bid modifiers so that you can manage your ROI on a per device basis. So I won't recite any of the stats. I think they're commonly known in the industry, and our goal through this is to continue to invest so that we can help you drive maximal performance for your customer base.
Fantastic. So earlier, Sam in his session was talking about declared intent versus inferred intent. And just the fact that someone is on a mobile device lets you infer their intent, their situation. How should marketers be listening to these secondary signals, and how should they set themselves up for success to provide that value, knowing that they typically only have less than a minute to really capture someone's attention and be relevant?
Okay. We believe that the signals we'll be getting are, they're obviously on the go, or they are looking for something, or there's this matter of urgency. So I feel that more and more we are going to get into hyperlocal targeting. We're going to be looking much more like, what's the radius around a certain Walgreens, and how can we get our product to that person when they're searching for it in the moment that matters. It's really about those micro moments and making sure that marketers are identifying their micro moments and being present. So I really feel it's going to go along that direction. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the points it was Brian mentioned about predictive and like being able to anticipate people's needs. I think that's going to be an important part of it, and I think it's going to be the next step of how we as marketers can really look to be in those those points to anticipate what someone wants.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the big difference when you think about mobile advertising or mobile intent is that local signal. The context that the individual is in is so much different, to steal the term, a micro moment. I think that the ability to for a marketer to take advantage of that and create the connection is true. I also think that you need to hold your platform a bit accountable. I think that the Microsofts and the Googles and the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world, I think that as your platform, it's our accountability and our responsibility to you to be stewards of your advertisers' dollars and create a platform that allows you to tap into that sentiment, tap into that micro moment, if you will.
Very good. So it seems like, you mentioned, and you mentioned as well when we were talking earlier, a lot of brands are having a hard time adapting to this sea change, this consumer-led change, this movement to mobile, this new way of interacting, and this intensely personal way that people are looking for data. Why do you think that many brands are struggling? Is it merely a matter of not having the right assets in place, or is it more of a strategic planning thing? And what should brands be looking at to make sure they're not only responding to yesterday's trends in mobile search and mobile in general, but to try and get ahead of the curve?
I think there's two sides to that. One is that I think brands are still kind of getting comfortable with mobile and how to work with mobile. I mean, it's not a black box. It is just like other media. It's just a different platform. But I think that one of the important things is really just seeing that there might even be, from the assets point of view, yes, the assets, you have to think about it. This is a very personal device. I mean, we were talking earlier about maybe doing an exercise where everybody gets up, okay? You all unlock your phones, go to your photo gallery, and pass it to the person to the right, right?
Anyone?
Anyone
Nope.
up for that?
Nope.
Right? Yeah.
I see a couple of people putting their phones back in their
everybody
pocket.
hides their phone. I didn't bring my phone. It's in the room, But these are the things that become so important. It's such a personal device that we have to be smarter about how we're reaching consumers. So it has to be relevant marketing in the time of need, right? And we've got to make sure that the assets are entertaining, they're good. It's a small screen. Make sure you're doing the best stuff you can do for the mobile, and then take it to laptops and tablets and whatnot. And I think from a strategic point of view, what is happening with mobile is that some of the models are changing. You're always on the go. So for example, insurance companies, talking about bid modifiers, they're spending, they could be spending 3x, 5x on a bid modifier because they say, hey, when I get someone on the call, my conversion rate goes up to about 30%. I can upsell, cross-sell, right? While if I'm on the desktop, it might be at 3%. So these models are changing, and interestingly enough, you talk to OTAs, online travel agencies, and some of them are like, I don't want to get calls. I'm like, but you have to understand, your consumer is now changing. And he might be in the car, he's holding 3 kids all over the place, and he's like, I need a hotel room tonight, and I want to talk to somebody. I don't have time to go through all your screens. So that's what's going to change. So there's changes in the strategic models that we would, the business models basically. So, and that's consumer driven.
But of course, if the insurance company in that instance, saw a different performance in tablet, they might have some. I'm kidding. I got to give you guys a little bit of crap.
I was going to say, someone's talking on their phone right while they're driving, and that would be just wrong, right? Yeah. The insurance company would then go, oh, so you're calling from your car, are you?
Yeah.
It's actually, I think that's an interesting point, in fact. One of the challenges that we all know and experience is around attribution. And so the fact that the consumer decision journey is now spread across it could be not only multiple devices, but multiple OSs, multiple modalities. The question was, why is it hard? Well, this is one of the reasons why it's really hard, is because this is still there are obviously good products in market, but I don't know that anybody has completely solved the Rubik's Cube on attribution modeling. So we do a lot of work back in Redmond around things like tracking the consumer decision journey, and I was just reviewing some data around the purchase of a digital SLR, and boy, they started at a search engine, in this case it was Bing, but then they were on an Android phone in a Facebook app, and they saw a digital camera, a DP review, they went to DP review, and then they're on an iPad, Safari, they're in, Stephen Huff in terms of like a niche website, and kind of tracking that all the way through and attributing the right value to each step is frankly difficult. Yeah. Interestingly enough, we all keep up on third-party analysis, and if you read recent eMarketer reports, it doesn't appear that it's stopping dollars from flowing in. I just saw a report, I don't know if you saw it, that suggested that digital spend in display and search mobile advertising is going to exceed digital spend in PC-based search and display advertising. They're forecasting this year. I don't know if it's true or not, but so while I think it's challenging and there are a lot of opportunities for us, I certainly think that there is a lot of advertising dollars getting poured into it for obvious reasons, the volume.
And actually on that point, I mean, we have already reached, in 10 countries, we're already surpassed. Mobile queries have surpassed desktop queries. So that shift is clearly happening, yeah.
So one of the things that I'm looking forward to getting in a future report at some point from one of you gentlemen or your companies is information on voice search, being able to break that out and being able to see how many people are actually searching using Google Now, using Cortana, even using Siri. I'll admit that when I got my iPhone, I voice searched with Siri a lot, mostly just asking her stupid questions to see what she would say. But as we learned this morning, I am not a representative data set that we can draw extrapolations from. So do you have any insight into how consumers are using voice search and what brands should pay attention to in order to be relevant in that kind of different way of interacting?
So it's interestingly enough, seeing the Cortana data in a pretty granular level, you're actually a pretty good data point. You're actually fairly representative. Look, voice-activated search is, frankly, it's a pretty new modality. It might be sort of a novelty right now. People are still figuring it out. The platforms are still figuring out how to get it right. And so I think that it's early. I also think, speaking simply from Microsoft's perspective, I don't know what you would say, but I think as you interact with a voice-based search utility like a Cortana, it's a completely different interface than even a mobile search results page. So what is the right ad experience that you present? So I think that, I certainly think that there's kind of work in marketing on the consumer side. There's a lot of engineering that needs to go into the artificial intelligence that drives assets like Cortana, but then there's a lot of work for us to do in the industry to kind of figure out what is the right advertising asset that we present, say, in a Cortana experience. In not only in a mobile phone, Cortana in Win 10, it'll be ubiquitous in Win 10 as well. It's going to be exciting. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to lead to, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity as consumers get more comfortable with it, as they learn the power of it, and as they start using it to be more productive versus, say, asking, I don't know, what's your favorite color or
I think the last voice search I did was I was out at a very late dinner and we were joking around about that, and I told Siri that I loved her. And she responded, It's a little late. Have you been drinking? So that's
Yeah.
try it tonight.
So I actually think it's, let's imagine a world with no keyboards, because that is where we're going. That's what our kids are used to. Just anecdotally, my son, when he was 5, he started using search, and I taught him to use voice search. He continually uses it now. He knows how to read and write, but he still uses it. Ironically, when we started, it was like, how far is the moon from the Earth? How big is the United States? All these kind of great questions. And then it just went down to like a kind of, almost like an Oracle-like phone, where it's like going, why can I not stay up after midnight? So interestingly enough, to the same point, it's still early stages, but where it can go is what's really fascinating, because we will be able to, in the future, speak to a Cortana, to a Siri, to Google Now, and it will translate simultaneously what we're saying into another language. And that kind of power is just mind-blowing. And I think that's where the AI piece just becomes fascinating.
And I think I don't think it's search anymore. It might be built on top of, say, Bing infrastructure or Google infrastructure, but the utility itself is an artificial intelligence utility. It is a digital assistant. Just a little example. My phone chimed up. I had to go to San Francisco yesterday morning before I came here, and my phone chimed up at 6 a.m. saying, you need to leave earlier because there's been a wreck on the floor. It basically accessed Bing traffic data, saw that there was a complete standstill, knew when my flight was, and it woke me up. And it told me I likely needed to get on the phone. We're, again, very nascent, very early, very rudimentary, but it kind of gives you an idea of where this technology is going.
Very cool. Let's shift back to how advertisers should, or how brands should be addressing mobile. So a lot of times the challenges that brands have with mobile is prioritization. There's limited time, there's limited development resources, and we know we have to be there, but we have to pick and choose. So say I'm a brand and I come to you and I say, look, what should I focus on? What should I build for the next 6 months? Should I really make my mobile site responsive, or should I build a really cool app that people will want to engage with? Which would you recommend?
I tend to say that, nowadays really an M site is really your acquisition kind of portal, and you really would build an app as a second stage if you've got something interesting to talk to people on a regular basis. I mean, if we really look at apps, 90% of apps are downloaded and they are opened once. Okay? If we break it down, 80% of all, we spend 86% of our time in apps, which is mostly social and gaming, right? And really, it's concentrated in Facebook, Pandora, Gmail, these kind of sites, like 80% of it. So I'd say an app is something expensive to create, and unless you have a reason, like you're a Hotels Tonight, or you're an online travel agent, which is getting a lot of traffic, or you're Amazon, then I would say definitely go for the app. But as an advertiser, think of this as your acquisition channel for the M sites. And then for your loyalty or your retention, then you can create an app if you feel it's necessary.
Yeah, I completely agree. The scenario you painted was you have 6 months, and they're really expensive. It's really what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. Apps, very deep, very rich experiences, very immersive, very expensive to build, and you're suffering from having to build them potentially across platform if you want to build them on something other than the Windows Phone.
That was a nice plug.
All right,
if you build a Windows optimized site, it's immediately cross-platform. You can. You're welcome. You can direct your search engine traffic to it, and it's simply more scalable and more cost efficient. But in the end, it really depends on what your specific goal is.
So let's shift away from apps. And talk about tablet bid modifiers. No, I'm kidding. Not going to talk about tablet bid modifiers. I'm the only one that thinks that's funny. That's funny,
I think it's
right?
funny. It's good. It's good. Talk about bid modifiers.
No. So what are some of the things that advertisers are asking of you and your company, your ecosystem, when it comes to mobile? So I know that Google and Microsoft are developing a whole bunch of solutions, new reporting, new advertising opportunities, but a lot of times advertisers are saying, yeah, that's great now, but instead build this. What are some of the things that advertisers are asking of you that are in your future plan or that you're considering?
I can say we're getting a lot of questions around volume and measurement or volume and attribution. I kind of already touched on the attribution challenge. On the volume side, we are aggressively marketing our assets, and we made the smart decision to become OS agnostic. So we love everybody who has an Android phone as well as iPhone users or tablet users, and we're deploying our assets there to create a larger supply footprint. We're also very aggressive in the syndication world. We know, I mean, practically speaking, advertisers are going to follow qualified eyeballs, and so at Microsoft, this is kind of one of our key strategic initiatives, is to drive mobile volume at quality. We're pretty pleased with the quality of our volume and the low cost of our clicks. We're just getting a lot of requests from advertisers to drive more of it.
Yeah, and from Google's point of view, I mean, really, what we're being most asked about is same things. It's like it's cross-device, it's online to store, and then it's how do we measure this? And I think on the measurement piece, we come back to that whole story, how we're stuck on the last click. We're using traditional desktop kind of methodologies to measure mobile. We need to bring into the picture what are the calls driving, what are the store visits driving, and then really being able to measure that in an automated way. I mean, I think that the concept of having to look at 4 or 5 different sources of data to really get a picture is not the right way. So what we're looking to do is much more have a dashboard, and making sure we can measure all of the things across the board. And that dashboard can give you a single view and help you automate and respond in real time to a lot of the things that are happening in the market. This is all offered by DoubleClick.
Jeez.
I'm kidding.
I have a feeling
we love DoubleClick.
One last thing that's important is that it's also about measuring not only what you're doing in search, but across all of your be it Facebook, be it all of the different platforms you're using. So, and that's kind of the panacea that people are looking for.
So, stepping away from the U.S., Ben Wood, right after lunch, spoke about how digital is just this huge global opportunity and the ability to scale and to reach into other markets. Looking at mobile in particular, outside of the U.S., what trends do you see happening in Asia and Europe that advertisers need to be thinking about and being aware of, rather than just taking their strategy in the U.S. and just porting it over to other places?
I think a lot of what we're seeing, and I worked a lot in Latin America as well, very similar to Asia, apart from your outliers like Japan and Korea. But what you really see is that for a lot of consumers, their first access to the internet is going to be a smartphone. They will never even own a tablet or a laptop. So I think this is an important thing to have, a consideration to have. There's also a lot of misconceptions. People think that it's rich, young people who are accessing the internet, and it's not the case. They say, oh, they can't afford a data plan. The truth is, they are connected to Wi-Fi more than any of us are probably connected to Wi-Fi. Funny story, when in Google Mexico, we had free internet on our floor, and people up and down the stairs from our floor would actually be on the floor, like they would be hijacking our Wi-Fi connection to check their smartphones. And these were just, like normal people that work in the building.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. That's the opportunity. So when we talk about the next billion are going to come from there. They're going to be all smartphone users.
Yeah, I think I agree. In terms of other types of trends we're seeing, one of the ones that we're following with a great deal of interest is in Asia and its messaging platforms. And so kind of they've really taken off, particularly in APAC, relative to, say, in the US. So a brand in the US who's trying to get in market there would probably do themselves a favor by looking really closely at these messaging platforms where brands are building entire campaigns now, not on OSs, but on messaging platforms. And I think Facebook might have mentioned that they're going to begin to get into this at F8 recently through their Messenger product. But I would call that out as maybe a specific trend that we're seeing that's quite a bit different outside of the US.
So one final question for you two gentlemen. If I had actually thrown my iPhone at the start of this session, should I replace it with an Android phone or a Windows phone? Actually, I'll table it there. We can pick up that conversation over beers tonight, all right?
Absolutely. Perfect.
So join me in saying thank you to Brian and Pablo for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.